Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. I'm Matt,
And I'm Eric.
and this week we're going to go do some running or maybe some light verbal jogging. We are looking at The Running Man, which is an adaptation of the Stephen King novel, which he wrote in 1982 under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. It was previously adapted as a film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, who makes the funniest of funny appearances in this new film.
Mm-hmm.
That 1987 film, directed by Paul Michael Glaser, uh, was certainly interesting, very 80s in its style. Kind of showcases a little bit of the idea of this world, a main character named Ben Richards, and the idea of a televised spectacle where people are trying to avoid hunters to potentially earn money. Those things are the same. But if you saw that movie and you were thinking you were getting a shot for shot remake, boy, are you in for it. However, this one from Edgar Wright probably hews a little bit closer to the original novel. I've seen some things online about Stephen King being kind of pleased with this adaptation. This is the second Stephen King adaptation this fall based on one of his Richard Bachman novels that also pictures a kind of dystopian world where you have an authoritarian government, economic crisis, a great disparity between the wealthy and those who are poor, and the idea of a televised spectacle of a game where contestants can potentially earn untold riches and pull themselves out of poverty, but they could also just end up with their brains splattered on the pavement. One of those, The Long Walk, which I talked about a couple weeks ago. The other, this film The Running Man, which features Glenn Powell in the lead role, Josh Brolin as kind of a nefarious TV executive, Coleman Domingo, who can't help do anything but be charming as
Yeah.
a host on this one, and an assorted cast of characters. I had fun with Michael Cera popping up there, Lee Pace pops up in here, a few other people popping up in there, but you were excited to see this one, Eric. What did this film do for you?
It started with the pacing and energy of a pumped up action spectacle with some not so subtle social commentary. And I fully expected that momentum to just pick up and continue to watch a guy try and survive these like escapist like trap boxes and houses and go from action set piece to action set piece. And that momentum kind of carried forward through him meeting and being with Michael Cera, which that sequence is the absolute highlight of the movie for me. And it ended in
With
a
Michael Cera.
yeah, it ended with a climax, a literal explosion that really feels like it puts like the button on the movie where the character makes this decision to be something and takes an action. And it's really interesting how much it's like it feels like at that point the movie ends and becomes a different movie that then starts to make its way through like how fake is everything, how hopeless is this situation trapped, and how much can this person actually convince the world that he's not a bad guy? What is he gonna do? And the way that story plods through to its ending is very interesting, but the very end of the movie kind of cops out and tries to put on such a weird happy ending sticker on it that feels so wrong taste wise in my mouth that I I feel very shaken up and thrown off by the like all the sentiments of the movie. Like without spoiling too much, you're not aware whether or not uh Richard Glenn Powell uh makes it or not. I'll just say makes it or not. I won't say, other words to kind of throw that off. But and this is just an example to kind of illustrate my point, that the agency, the network that is authoritarian, that runs everything, literally they say and they show you on every street lamp in America has a device that can split open in the sky and detect the tiniest traces of your DNA to know where you are. it's like the company would just have to be really stupid across the board and just stop using their technology in order to be not sure whether he's alive or dead. And so the movie just all of a sudden asks you to like, okay, forget everything. Here's the ending. Here's the ending. There's like just like feel good about the ending. And I was like, should I feel good about this? Because what the character has to sacrifice in order for certain things to happen means that the ending opens up this concept of this possibly bleak, like hopeless underdog war that we're never going to see, that possibly didn't succeed. And I'm getting a little tired of like movies. I always talked about this weird thing about some 90s movies like Independence Day, how they have these like big cheery hooray we won victory endings like it's the greatest day in their life. But if you actually were to live through the events of Independence Day, the horrible tragedy of how much your life had to change in order to go fight this fight and how much got destroyed and how the governments were destabilized, the end of that movie where they defeat the aliens is just the beginning of horrible tragedy. It's not really something for everyone to be like, hug each other, kiss your loved ones, celebrate, throw handkerchiefs in the air. It's a very sour tasting ending when it's not the 90s and we're not all, like, and that's kind of what I felt like here. So I really enjoyed Glenn Powell. The entire cast, Coleman Domingo, Josh Brolin, Jamie Lawson for the brief bit that she's in there. I even loved the kind of a cameo, even though it's not really a cameo because it's not like he's super famous for anything, but David Zayas, Angel Batista from the Dexter series. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Angel Batista. And Michael Cera is fantastic. Katie O'Brien is fantastic. I don't know this guy's name, but he looks exactly like a skinny, super skinny Chris Stuckman. Martin Hurley. Like he plays exactly the role that he needs to play. And William H. Macy, I haven't seen him in so long. Like, and he was so like heartfelt. I was like broken by that moment where he's like, Glenn Powell's like, I had to do it. And he's like, no, you didn't. And he shows him his work uniform. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's like, what? Oh, but yeah, crazy movie, twists and turns. There is some running. There are definitely some inventive, well shot, slick directed action sequences. Although I think if you watch a movie like Scott Pilgrim versus the World and Baby Driver back to back, those two movies look like they're directed by the same director. Running Man does not look like it's directed by the same director. It looks like it's directed by a talented director who has visual flair and like works well in camera with styles. And I appreciate so much the level of work that went into the stunt work to have things practically really happening. It didn't feel too touched up by CGI or anything like that. I love Edgar Wright's action making. I've been a super fan of Edgar Wright. I love the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and I actually like The World's End the best. Scott Pilgrim was an unbelievable formative movie for me. Baby Driver, I am looking for something to fill the Baby Driver shaped hole in my heart after Ansel Elgort turned out to be rapey and Kevin Spacey's whole thing kind of ruined the taste of watching that movie. And I kind of hoped that this might have been it. So I also feel like that might have been what let me down a little bit. And I even really liked Last Night in Soho, which was a kind of a big experimental departure in a script that he didn't write in order to do something that was kind of outside of his wheelhouse, but paid homage to a bunch of movies that he's a huge fan of because he's a massive cinephile. So I am all here for Edgar Wright's entire cinematography and like breakdown, but after that mark at the end with Michael Cera, this movie just starts to get really shaky and really all of the logic of what's possible to happen when that network can fake almost anything. Everything just kind of falls apart for me.
Yeah, and I probably what are you giving the film?
Sorry. I am still, just for the craft of it, for Glenn Powell's performance and for the action set pieces that work, giving it 1 thumb up.
It's interesting that we've gotten these two adaptations of Stephen King books from a certain period. You know, one was Long Walk was written in '79. This book written in '82. Um, very similar themes, and I think people have talked about how you know, they see some of the themes and it feels a little resonant here. I think both films attempt to touch on that a little bit. Stylistically, very different, you know, except that I would say the general arc of the story ends up in the same place. And I think whether or not it works for you may have to do with how you feel about the tone of the rest of it around it. The Long Walk to me is a more somber movie all the way through. You get glimmers of hope, but it's a bit of a darker, more hopeless feeling world most of the way through. And this one tries to, you know, I don't know if it's the Glenn Powell of it all, where it just feels a little superficial to me. A lot
Mm.
of him and a lot of it feels glib at times. So then when we get to the ending, I'm like, "Good Lord." This is like a thumbs
Okay.
neutral for me.
Okay.
I think it's a good topic, but I thought the movie was mediocre. You know, we started going through. I looked at Edgar Wright's. I did like Baby Driver
Everything is
fairly
mid.
well, but everything else, I've just been like, that was fine. Uh, feel mediocre to it was fine, but I would never watch it again. And that's a little bit how I feel about The Running Man. I just thought it was fine. I thought it was too long. It comes in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. If it was an hour and 45 minutes, it might have felt better. In fact, at one point I looked at my watch when I was halfway through, and I was like, oh God, it's only been an hour. I feel like I've been
See,
watching this
that's
half my
interesting.
life. I thought the beginning drug incredibly. Once
Really?
they get into the game, I liked it a little bit better, but he had no chemistry or anything with his wife in the movie. I
Oh,
was like, I could not hardly bring myself to care about him and his story. I thought it was mildly amusing when they said he was
wow.
the angriest man that they'd ever met.
It pisses me off.
Yeah, that pisses me off. Some of that was a little bit fun, but there was a lot of it that I was completely checked out on. And we got to some of the action set pieces. I liked it a little bit better when we got to the portion when he first gets rescued by the little boy and his brother. Um,
Mm.
I thought that was kind of a little more interesting, but then ends in a weird way. And then I thought they said he needed to just like kill one night before finding Michael Cera, but then it looked like he was out there for like a week. But then I was having trouble tracking how many days it had been.
Oh my gosh.
Their conception of time in the game was totally screwed to me, and I did not understand what the hell they were doing. And
And
then you finally get to
oh,
Michael Cera, and I'm like, okay, you know, that's good. But then I like Amelia Jones a lot.
mm,
I love Coda. I
oh
loved
yeah.
her in
But
Task.
where
But what the F
where
was
did
the
that come from?
character, and that whole sequence on the plane was trash. Uh,
Ah, I
I just did
wouldn't say
not.
trash.
I just did not care. That by that point, I was like, mercifully, God, when is this going to end? Um,
Wow, that is a rough
no,
experience,
I thought
man.
it was fine, but it. I didn't find it entertaining. I found it too long, and you get to that. It it didn't work for me the whole rest of the way the whole movie was constructed, and kind of his what felt like glib outlook on life, to then have that be the ending,
Mhm.
um, which was very much the way The Long Walk ends. But that movie is very somber and serious and has a very downtrodden look on the world, and you
Yeah.
basically have two opposing ideologies, and you think one is influencing the other, and it really turns out to be the other way around. But I didn't feel like you have people popping up into Ben Richards' sphere that I guess are supposed to be influencing his ideology, except for he probably would have had that ideology. I'm going to say this movie was almost to me less fun than the Arnold Schwarzenegger one, which is not a movie that I cared for either. And I thought was kind of ponderous, but I just did not, I wasn't having fun with it. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, the way that the long walk is earnest about how bleak its ending is refreshing compared to how this ending tries to act like it's some big hurrah. It's like, wow.
Yeah. And yeah. So I just don't
Oh,
know if
I have to go.
and maybe that is the tension between, we talked about, there are a lot of screenwriters on this that all have a background in doing scripts that you would say are infused
Humor.
with some humor and stuff. And Edgar Wright has always kind of put in some humor in his stuff,
I
and
mean,
I
there's
felt
not
like
explicit
they were
jokes.
trying to go for some levity, but then
Yeah,
it doesn't work with where you end up with the ending, and
right.
it just didn't totally work.
Okay. I gotta nitpick that I have to do a tiny rant about. Twice in the movie, two separate people come up with the idea for him to go ahead and shoot all of his uh videos that he has to drop pre-recorded. And the first time they do it, I think he actually does it. And I think they drop some of his tapes pre-recorded to make people think he's going a different direction, but they never show you that that's happening. The next time they show him recording one, he drops it off in the mail himself. So we don't get to see whether that actually worked or not. Then the second time, it's Michael Cera comes up with the idea for him to shoot the rest of them so that he can stay in the bunker. And before he can shoot the clips, Michael Cera hits the button to call people to come in. And it absolutely drives me crazy that they have this really smart idea on how to handle the system twice and they don't do it like both times. It's infuriating to me. It's like characters in a movie have a smart idea and then don't do it. That's, oh my gosh. Ugh.
Well, it wasn't terrible. It didn't totally work for me.
Well, it definitely worked for me like way better than they were for you. I am sorry that you had to have the experience that you had. Like as soon as he was in there with the baby, and like I bought into the character immediately with the concept of like I brought this child in so that I don't smash her face into the table. It's like a
Yeah.
self-control thing. Like Powell sold to me a guy with so many anger issues that he can't hold down a job in this world that doesn't tolerate people being the way that he is. The only stuff that I couldn't buy about his character is just this dancing on the line between becoming a revolutionary and being a family man. And it feels to me like ultimately the decision that he makes is just so bleak and they try and make it seem so positive that I don't know. But but yeah, so what would have made this movie like work for you? Because when I hear people say that they don't like uh, Edgar Wright very much, it's interesting to me because Edgar Wright is such a distinct director with a distinct style that is like it's like it's almost like is a flavor of ice cream that like is not a favorite flavor of ice cream. And it's like there's undeniably some talent in the ability to craft jokes using camera editing and tricks and things like that. Like there's something to it. And when I see that it doesn't work from someone, the thing that's curious to me is like if Baby Driver worked for you, like what would have made this work for you?
I don't know. It's interesting you say it is distinct voice and distinct style, because I was trying to think. I don't know that I would have anything that came to mind to describe him as a director.
Really?
Yeah.
The smash zooms and like the editing montages and all the Blood and Ice Cream movies where they take like the mundane aspects of living and try and turn them into action shots, like the beer pouring in The World's End, or the toothbrushing in Shaun of the Dead, or the going to the bathroom in Hot Fuzz, or waiting for a train, is all these like smash montage cut editing sequences. And then Baby Driver's whole thing with everything being set to music with like long takes that are all like edited the way that they are. And then Scott Pilgrim's entire bombastic style of having this like comic book like infused language to the action, and like having like the wire work and like kung fu and all that kind of stuff. Like you've never watched one of his movies and been like, if someone else directed this movie, it would have been just like shot, reverse shot, deliver the dialogue, try and land the punchlines through the performances. Like,
well, I mean, you're naming a bunch of movies that I don't find particularly memorable or special. So
that's so interesting to me.
I thought all of them were fine. It's been a little while since I saw Baby Driver. I liked the story and the car sequences. I don't know that I would have considered like the way you're describing Scott Pilgrim as being specific to an Edgar Wright style so much as it just seemed like that was kind of the style of bringing that like comic book like story to life. But that's another one that I know a lot of people love that movie. I saw it. It was fine.
But there is a lot of visual language in terms of like the way he transitions from scene to scene that is very similar to the way he transitions between scenes, and in the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy. And then there are sight gags like the Kieran Culkin opening the door and the person's like, is Scott there? And he's like, no. And then like Scott jumps through a window over his head in the back of the window. Like these one take, crazy stunt, comedic effect things. Like it's comparable to like in Shaun of the Dead. There's like this one close-up shot where Nick Frost's character is telling Shaun to like look for zombies. And he's like, don't use that. We're not using the Z word. He opens this mail flap so that he can look outside. He's like, are there any though? And he's like, no, I don't see any. And then he just looks to the right slightly and he's like, oh, there they are. And there's like a huge crowd of zombies. It's just,
I guess when you talk about this movie, I thought it was too long, and I wish they would have picked a consistent tone.
I 100% absolutely agree with
those
that.
kind of things. Those two things probably, and I don't know if it, I didn't really care that much about Ben Richards in the 1987 version.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't particularly care about him here either. Mm-hmm. So maybe it is the story in general, because I've seen two iterations of this and neither of them would make my top 10.
Okay.
But, I tend to be, the movies that stick with me, the directors that really stick with me, create some kind of emotional hook. I thought Last Night in Soho was too long too. We're talking about, and I know a lot of people were really into the tension and the way that one built, and some of the, I didn't really care about the outcome and I thought it was too long. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's just something about his style doesn't really click with me. There, if I'm not super invested in the characters or a story, it's hard to go to the next level. And I think at some point that's where all film watching is subjective. Like,
it's funny, I had a similar thing with Last Night in Soho.
Basically you can tell from my description, I really did not care for The Running Man, but I still think it's neutral. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I didn't bomb it. It did not work for me. And some people have liked it a lot better. I remember thinking the same thing about Last Night in Soho. You saw some reviews, people gave it 4 or 5 stars, and I gave it 2.5. It was fine.
But I really agree that Last Night in Soho, story-wise, it was interesting to me because it didn't feel, and it wasn't written by Edgar Wright, and it didn't feel like the kind of story that's like traditional to like the bombastic male action protagonist running like an action adventure movie. It was kind of a break from his comfort zone and his wheelhouse. And a lot of a lot of his style of one take shots and visual flair, like with the dance sequences blurring between characters and all of this stuff was there, but there was such a disconnect between the writing and the visuals for that movie that it worked differently for me than a lot of his other stuff.
Yeah, and I go over these things too. Like you and I quite frequently are aligned on how we feel about
Mm-hmm.
something, but then there's like a certain percentage where we're just like way off.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like we should butt
Where
heads more because
we
we're
just
supposed to be doing the
well,
Siskel and Ebert thing,
no,
and
but
they
so
hated each
I was
other.
gonna say this is almost where I'm at with Ricky. Like 70% of things we're probably within a half star or we feel similar about it. And
Yeah,
then there's like 20 or 30% where it just zags based on personal style or interests.
yeah.
Something he loves that I'm like out on, or something I love that, and I feel like this might just, Edgar Wright probably is just one of those areas. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think he's a bad director. It just, I don't
Yeah,
think
no, his
any of
stuff
those
just
movies are
hasn't
bad. Like when we
sparked
were
for
talking
you.
about, I went through, like, I was looking at my IMDb scores on his page,
Like
and
5
I
out of
don't
10.
have anything less than a 5,
Yeah.
but I only have one that's like 8 or better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I liked Hot
Oh,
Fuzz because I liked the setup, the cop, the dopey small town cop setup a
Hot Fuzz
little
is
bit
really
better.
good. Yeah.
Um, but I know a lot of people like Shaun of the Dead, and I appreciate what they are going for. To me, it was fine. That's not like an annual rewatch movie. And the same with Scott Pilgrim. There are people, and I also don't
It's
know
their
if they,
whole lives.
well, and you and I are probably like half a decade or a little bit more apart in age, and part of me wonders if that is
One decade.
yeah. So one, I wasn't sure. I didn't want to short.
81, right? I'm
Yeah, 81
91.
and 90. And I have noticed for people like in your generation, I don't mean this as pejorative,
No,
but Scott
100%.
Pilgrim probably came to you when you were at a different age. And like I
Right in
remember
early 20s.
like
Or
my
not even.
feeling about Jurassic Park, it's every time I think about Jurassic Park or see it, I remember what it was like to be 12 seeing it on the big screen. And so there are certain things like Scott Pilgrim was 2012, right?
2010. I was 19.
2010.
Yeah.
I, you know, I had been out of college. I was,
Yeah.
I was 29.
Uh-huh.
I was working. I was covering sports. I was working for the
Yeah,
newspaper.
20
I actually
something
might have.
slacker trying to date a high schooler is not going to hook you. It's not like
Well, yeah, I remember seeing people are like, "This is revolutionary." I saw it, and I'm like, "Yeah, that was okay. That was, that was something." But different films hit you in different
for different
ways,
reasons.
and sometimes the
Absolutely.
way people talk about movies from the late 70s or early 80s, you can tell, like, for the generation above us, it was a different time. And I think that's some of the hit against The Running Man. There is a certain group of people that really like those kind of brash and trash 80s action movies, and The Running Man was right for Arnold Schwarzenegger in that
Mhm.
Predator, Running Man, Conan the Barbarian, Terminator.
Yeah.
It still drives me nuts that he's the all-American hero. Ben
Yeah.
Richards can barely
Yeah. It's not really the
can't pronounce
same.
the word Tuma, but and
Yeah,
he's
it's
the
like Kindergarten
all-American.
Cop or Jingle All
Yeah,
the Way.
yeah. So and I saw some of the appeal of how that was put together. Maria Conchita Alonso is in that movie. Paul Michael Glazer, who did some kind of action movies and who was in Starsky and Hutch, directed that. And I was like, oh, okay, I get what you're going for here. I think this is a better, like, polished film. The production's better. The world building's better. It seems like if you read the description, it hews closer to the novel. I was on the fence, like, when I was going to buy books last time. I was like, am I going to get this one? Because I'm curious about the story. I don't know if I will now, because I don't know if it's a story that necessarily
Right.
clicks with me. I was trying to decide, like, should I get this? Should I get Long Walk? Should I get The Life of Chuck? I'm like, I will
Dude,
probably get The Life of
Life
Chuck,
of
and
Chuck.
I will
Yeah.
probably get The Long Walk because I thought that was interesting. But it may just not be a story that totally connects.
It didn't for me either. Like because I know the movie went where the book goes, I almost wish they had just taken liberties and done their own thing with it and stuck to the tone that was being built over the first half of the movie.
Which is interesting because for me, I did not care for the first half of the movie.
The sequence from when he's on the run through
From when he's on the
through
run. Yeah, I guess you're just,
through
I
Michael
don't.
Sarah.
It's hard to know if that's even half. Like that's.
Oh, it's not.
I was like,
It's
my
not.
God, it's taking a long time to get where we're going.
Yeah, no, it was like there's like 20 minutes of setup, and then
so it's probably
like an hour.
Probably for me, you asked, like, I liked, I guess what we would say is Act 2. From the moment he enters the game and is kind of going through getting psyched up and going in the game and trying to find a way to survive and beating them and meeting the different people who want him to see this, see himself as a symbol bigger than a guy just trying. But that opening didn't really work for me. And I think that's where you're going to be at a kind of make or break, because that is what sets
you have to care about him.
For him. And then that third act, oh boy.
Yeah.
And it didn't sound like you liked that much either. And so maybe that's where, that there's another movie that's coming out closer to Thanksgiving that I'll have full thoughts on, but essentially I thought started slow, but has a magnificent third act. And for me, that was enough to keep the trajectory and for me to give it 4 stars and for me to have it in my top 12 for the year. And for our friend Ricky's like, well, yeah, that was the best, but what about you got off to a rocky start? And this one got off to a rocky start, but I was starting to buy into it more in the middle. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I was too harsh. And then we got to kind of from the moment, you're right, after like that bridge explosion, and then there was the weird sequence where he has some kind of a vision and he wakes up in the house, but then you hear his voiceover. He's like, I'm not going to run. I'm coming at you. And I thought, oh, he's just going to turn around. He's going to try to go take the fight to the network. Then you end up in this wondrous chase. With Amelia Jones leads to a ridiculous plan. Onto a plane. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah. What happened to bring in the fight?
Original, like when you got on that plane, your idea was you were going to try to jump off in the middle
into Canada. Yeah. But how is that bringing the fight to the network?
How is that going to happen? And so beginnings and endings are tough.
Dude, and that's I think exactly the thing. It's like, so a movie that starts rough can win you with its ending. And a movie that starts really good, it can have like a weak ending and you can think fondly about the rest of the movie and probably give it a pass. But a movie can have like a really rough middle, but if it catches your interest in the beginning so you care, and it wins the end so it pays off everything it's built, it can survive. You just can't have a movie that has a beginning that doesn't grab you, in your case, that does a lot of inventive and fun things in the middle, and then like gives up in the end. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, I am going to give my thoughts on a couple other movies that are out there, but first we will give you your clue. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, you're ready. A man in Mexico masks his identity to help feed the poor. I'll let you ponder that. There are a couple other theatrical...
I got it.
Oh, what is it?
The Mask of Zorro.
No.
What?
You're not even in the right century.
What?
I'll let you think about it a little bit longer. There are a couple other movies in theaters. One of them is Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
That was California. Oh my gosh.
I was legitimately a little bit excited to see this one. I am a big fan of Now You See Me, which was released in 2013. I thought the sequel, Now You See Me 2, was pretty good. That was in 2016. It has been about 10 years, and there is no continuity in this franchise, unfortunately. This third film has a completely different director than the other two and a different set of screenwriters. They try to bring a lot of things back. They lean into that 10-year gap. This time they are trying to basically bring justice against Veronica Vandenberg, played by Rosamund Pike, who owns a diamond company. She's a South African businesswoman who uses the diamonds to actually be kind of a criminal overlord. I would say the biggest crime in this movie is her accent, which is just so noticeable and dominates so much. I was also disappointed because Ruben Fleischer is the director here. He did Zombieland. He's done some other sitcoms and comedies. Seth Grahame-Smith, Rhett Reese, Brent Warnick worked on this. Guys who have done action films that have comedy and healthy dose. One of the things I love best about Now You See Me and Now You See Me Too is kind of the charm and the wit in the setup and the charm in the action. And this movie feels like it's kind of stripped of all that. It's very flaccid, which makes it feel very long. I'm actually going to give this one a mild thumbs down. I just thought they blew so many opportunities, and they have an amazing cast. Jesse Eisenberg's back, Woody Harrelson, Isla Fisher is back, Dave Franco, Lizzie Kaplan, Dominic Sessa, Ariana Greenblatt, Justice Smith, Rosamund Pike, Morgan Freeman. But it's also missing some things, some of the quintessential elements that I think worked for the other two. This one also, you can tell at the end, is setting up that they hope this is going to become like a big franchise, I think, in another way. And I don't know about that after all this. So like I said, mild thumbs down. Was not my favorite. You have your guess?
Nacho Libre.
It is Nacho
All right,
Libre.
cool. I couldn't remember the second half of the clue, but I was like, oh, wait, what's a totally different tone?
Yeah,
All
totally
right.
different. Well, and totally different because I think Mask of Zorro is in the 90s, right?
It was in the 90s, and
That's why I said
yes,
a
of
different
course,
century.
the events of that movie are set in California, which, oh my gosh.
But California before it's California as we kind of know it.
Yeah.
A couple other ones I'm going to run through. A couple on Netflix. The first, Nouvelle Vague, which means in French, the new wave. This is Richard Linklater's love letter to the film Breathless. You basically follow a young Jean-Luc Godard as he is coming up with and shooting Breathless, the film almost entirely in French. Is now streaming on Netflix. This is the second film from Linklater this year, and the second film from Linklater that really focuses on a pretty infamous creator in a certain entertainment field and a key portion of their career. Blue Moon came out earlier this year. I really liked that one. I love the performance from Ethan Hawke. I thought the movie was pretty good. Set in the world of theater, following Hart and his reaction to his former partner Rogers teaming with Hammerstein to create Oklahoma, and it was near the end of Hart's life. This one near the beginning of Godard's career as a director, an interesting time. Really, if you have seen the film Breathless, if you're interested in the French New Wave, this is probably going to speak to you more than if you've never seen Breathless, you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
This is not for you. But I'm giving this one a mild thumbs up. I enjoyed it the same way I enjoyed Blue Moon. I think it is a fun film. I assume you've seen Breathless.
I wanted to love Breathless so much because I am very inspired by the idea of the French New Wave, and I like it. But I had to watch it for film school. And I sat in like the auditorium when they screened the Criterion Collection like movie of it. And during the long take sequence when they're in their hotel room together, I fell asleep for what felt like a very long time and woke up and they were still in that room.
You would probably still be interested in this because it's a little bit about the making of and
love
how
hangout movies
how
from Richard Linklater.
Everyone thinks Godard's crazy and that this isn't going to work. In fact, like you get to the completion of the film, shot over a chaotic 20 days, and his producer wants to murder him. Gene Seberg says it's the worst thing she's ever done, and then at the end they tell you it's become a class. And it's funny when you're going through this if you've seen Breathless and you know what Breathless is. But again, if you have never seen it, you don't really understand the French New Wave. You don't know who Truffaut is or any of these people, it's not going to mean as much to you, because they really do go to painful lengths to tell you who, to single shot with a face and a name every person before their scene picks up, so that you know who's going in here. It's really kind of, people have described it as a love letter from him to the French New Wave, and you know, that is probably accurate. Picks up in 1959, kind of goes through the production of this and Godard, and you know, I had fun with it. It's definitely niche, and I felt like that was probably true for Blue Moon too. Like, if you don't know of Rodgers and Hart or Rodgers and Hammerstein, you know, Andrew Scott's great, Ethan Hawke's great. That was probably a little more accessible because it's in English, but it's shot very much. It's interesting. It's shot very much like a stage play, which is sort of befitting the fact that you're following playwright. And Nouvelle Vague is shot very much like a French New Wave film. It's in black and white. It's in the chopped 4:3 frame, and the way they're shooting it, which would very much befit the subject that they're doing. That part, I almost think those two movies work better as a package. As like Linklater's year of uplifting artists that you can tell he admires. So, Netflix had another film this week, In Your Dreams, which is a animated tale. I had some fun with this one too. Kind of a quirky, fun animated tale that goes into the land of dreams. A couple of animators who long worked on Pixar films, Eric Besson and Alexander Wu, worked on this one. I give this one a mild thumbs up too, if you're looking for a good animated film. Netflix, a big week for them. They also had the documentary Being Eddie, documentary on Eddie Murphy. He tells a little bit of his story of his personal life, his career coming up, some interviews. I thought that one was really good. I gave that a thumbs up. It has been a pretty solid year for documentaries exploring artists. You know, there's a great Martin Scorsese documentary on Apple. There's like a fascinating Charlie Sheen documentary on Netflix. There is a great Pee Wee Herman documentary on HBO. So it has been a fun year for documentaries exploring kind of these artists and their careers in fascinating ways. And then the last one I'll mention is Prime Video had its release film Playdate, which was an action comedy with Alan Ritchson and Kevin James. If you missed it, I'm going to say you weren't missing much. I'm going to give this one a thumbs down. I would rather watch Running Man every day for the rest of my life than have to watch that movie again.
All right.
So, I like Alan Ritchson. I like his Reacher series. Kevin James can be fun too. I don't know what they were going for with that movie. But it is tough, you know. You can keep up. I'll have a lot of stuff coming out next week. Going to be talking about Wicked for Good,
big releases,
Rental Family, and Sentimental Value, which I've actually already seen.
Whoa, okay.
So looking forward to talking about that, and then we have big Thanksgiving week. Eternity will be in there. Hamnet, some things coming out. It is, you know, every week coming down off Screener Mountain to do a few shows, and then I have to climb back up Screener Mountain. But you know, it's the most wonderful time of the year. So we'll see how all that goes. Until then, we'll see you guys at the movies, but maybe not play.